21. Katherine sat back on her haunches and pondered this bizarre occurrence. It seemed so strange to her, and she just couldn't see any reason as to why this symbol would be following Sister Sorcha. What did it mean? And what did the markings have to do with Sister Sorcha? Perhaps she hadn't even been aware they were there. Why would someone try to connect the kindly nun with someone as immoral as Judas? But then again, Katherine hadn't known her that well. Other than the torture she had endured at the hands of Sister Nora and the caring personality that she had showed her, Katherine really knew very little of the type of person her comrade was when she wasn't around. Could there have been another side to her that she was careful to keep hidden? Anything was possible, but Katherine was reluctant to believe badly of the nun who had been her only support. There must be another explanation. She snuffed out what was left of the candle, foregoing any more attempts at retrieving the rosary beads, placed the little stub of wax back on the desk, and skirted her way to the door. She waited a few moments before proceeding to open the door, straining her ears for the sound of anyone walking in the hallway before pulling the door closed behind her. Once she was certain that the coast was clear, she inched out into the hall and sprinted along the edge of the wall once again, back to the safety of her own dorm room. That part of the corridor seemed too dark and desolate. There was a faint glow of light coming from underneath the doors of the other nuns. Most of them were still awake, saying their final prayers for the night, so their candles were still alight. She could hear the low murmur of methodical prayer as if she really strained her ears. Sister Sorcha's room stood out like an ominous presence amongst the others, a reminder of the heavy existence of death within these walls. There was complete darkness even in the areas surrounding her room, and it sent shivers down Katherine's spine. She shuffled into her room and used the wire to lock the door again. She needed everything to look exactly as it had when Sister Nora had done her rounds earlier that night. She shuddered as she imagined Sister Nora's wrath if she found Katherine's door unlocked. The results would be catastrophic. She tiptoed over to her bed and moved the mattress back again. It would be better to replace the wire rather than try to dispose of it, but despite her vigorous efforts, it kept slipping out of place. She had no choice but to stash it somewhere. But where? There weren't many hiding spaces at her disposal. Hiding it underneath her bed was less than ideal. Too easy for someone to find it. However, she didn't have any other options. She sighed and knelt down, then inched the wire as far back into the bed frame as possible. As she retracted her hand, she paused. The floorboards felt bumpy, just as Sister Sorcha's had been, as though they'd been gouged with something sharp. She hauled the bed frame to one side to get a better view of what was there. Katherine had a sinking feeling in her stomach, knowing deep down what was carved into her floor, but she needed to see it with her own eyes. The pattern of strange coincidences that had emerged recently could only lead to one explanation. With blustering hands, she jumped up and grabbed a nearby candle and had to strike a match a few times to be able to set the wick alight. She knelt again with caution and brought the candle right up next to where she had felt the carvings. Her breath started to come in short bursts, and the bile rose in her throat as the etching became clear. Father Michael had been right from the start. Sister Nora had been watching her, marking her, targeting her. Katherine raised her hand to her mouth to stop herself from screaming. Right under her bed were the markings of the 30 pieces of silver of Judas. They were dotted across the large space as if the coins had been tossed there. Her shaking hands were causing the candle flame to flicker, sending the etching into the dark abyss and back again. The symbol of Judas's sin was directly under where she laid her head every night. She was being tarred with the same brush as Judas. Katherine knew she wasn't perfect, that some of her actions had made her mother think there was a darkness hidden within her, especially after the incidents with Michelle and the imbecile Seamus all those years ago. Katherine still couldn't see, however, why her mother had an issue with it. It wasn't that she was evil. She'd had a good reason. All she had done was eliminate a problem that was making her own life unbearable. She was looking after herself because no one else would. Was that the reason for the markings? Did Sister Nora know about what she'd done to Michelle and Seamus? And was she making it her mission to punish her for her supposed wrongdoings? But that still didn't explain why Sorcha had been targeted as well. What did Sister Nora know about Sorcha? Had she done something in her past life that Sister Nora deemed to be worthy of punishment? Or had her wrongdoing simply been allowing a friendship to blossom in an environment that bred only darkness and despair? All the fear and apprehension that Katherine had succumbed to in the last few months vanished in an instant. Those emotions lifted from her body like a veil and were replaced with outrage. The anger that coursed through her veins was like a raging fire bubbling inside her. How dare Sister Nora play God and punish her for what she'd done? That boy was a burden to everyone around him. She'd merely done a service for her parish and herself, and she refused to feel sorry for it. He got what he deserved. As for Michelle, well, she was just too weak to justify her existence. If there was one teaching from the Bible that Katherine remembered well, it was when God had said, "An eye for an eye." If it was in the Bible, it couldn't be wrong. Could it? She stood up and began to pace the room, muttering in anger. She was so furious she could have punched the wall out of frustration. What a hypocrite Sister Nora was! After every sordid sin she'd committed against innocent people for decades, Katherine didn't care if it was the crucifix making her do it. Whatever Sister Sorcha had done would never match up to the atrocity Sister Nora had committed herself. Katherine scoffed in disbelief and blew out her candle, almost spitting at it in her haste. She pulled her bed and mattress back into its original place and lay down to go to sleep. Lying on her back, staring blankly at the ceiling for what felt like hours, her anger continued swirling in the pit of her stomach, making it impossible for her to doze off. She kept reliving the events that had occurred in the orphanage since she'd been brought there. Every agonizing stroke of pain, all the abuse and the isolation she'd felt was because Sister Nora had taken it upon herself to act as judge, jury, and executioner. A woman so obsessed with a gaudy crucifix, no, controlled by it, had tormented Katherine for something she'd committed years ago. Katherine rolled over and hit her pillow in frustration. She hated Sister Nora, hated the enormity of her power over her helpless victims. She vowed she wouldn't be afraid of her any longer. She wouldn't hide herself for fear of the extreme repercussions. Not anymore. She couldn't believe how stupid she had been, allowing Sister Nora to make her a pawn of the devil. She shook her head and smirked. She vowed that, one way or another, she would find a way to have revenge on Sister Nora, not just for herself, but for the rest of the orphans, and Sister Sorcha too. If Sister Nora thought Katherine was evil, then she would show her just how evil she could be. She would have to come up with a foolproof plan, but her mind was racing with possibilities. Sister Nora was cunning. Katherine would have to remain quiet and subdued in case she aroused any suspicion. With her newfound perspective and the titillating taste of revenge to come, Katherine's eyes finally grew heavy with sleep. She drifted off as the heavy vibrations of the organ being played lulled her to sleep.